And we're back.
Yes, we are.
But you know what didn't come back? These pilots that were not picked up for a full series.
Yes. Today we have chosen 3 different pilot episodes of cartoons which were not picked up for full series in the 90s. And they're a mixed bag of
Indeed.
delights and horrors, the likes of which I have never experienced. The first pilot that we watched was Battletoads.
Indeed. In the wake of their revival this year that I actually really like, it really blew away my expectations.
So I was kind of a layman to Battletoads. Before this was the first I'd experienced of Battletoads. I knew it was a game, but that was the extent of my knowledge. So would you like to give a bit of history about the Battletoads brand?
Sure. So Battletoads was created by Rare in the 90s. The same people who would go on to create Donkey Kong as we know them in Donkey Kong Country when Nintendo asked them to, Killer Instinct, Banjo-Kazooie. They've done a lot of great childhood games.
Oh, wow.
Battletoads was arguably one of their earliest ones. There was a game on the NES that is terrible. It's like people remember it because they had it, but it's actually really bad. It's crap. It's actually bad. But it kind of took off. There was an arcade game that I think is phenomenal. You've seen me share some images from that.
I have. I looked at videos of the arcade game, and it looks amazing. Like the character
it looks so cool.
the animations, yeah, like very tonally different to this cartoon as well.
Completely. And what's kind of a double-edged sword is that arcade game kind of did in the brand. Because they made the NES one, that was kind of for kids. Then when they didn't have to kowtow to any product like audience standards because it was just an arcade, they added in blood, they added in some disturbing language. You could decapitate your enemies by turning your foot into a buzzsaw. It got very gruesome.
Okay,
I think if you're playing all 3 players, it'll tally up how many enemies you kill, and depending on who kills the most, the words will flash on screen. Whichever toad, Rash is Duke of Death or Count of Carnage, and award you points based on that.
Oh, wow.
And it was after that public Nintendo and other publishers were like, maybe we don't want to touch this brand. It's not as kid friendly as we thought. Which is why only after that there were a couple Super Nintendo games. There's Battletoads and Battle Maniacs, and a crossover with Double Dragon. I don't know if you're familiar with Double Dragon.
I used to have Double Dragon for the NES.
Ah, well, there you have it. Yeah, they made Battletoads Double Dragon, where they team up.
That sounds great.
It is pretty cool. Then we didn't hear from Battletoads for lots of years. There were cameos here and there. They put Rash into the reboot of Killer Instinct as a guest playable character.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. And I love Killer Instinct too.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of neat. His victory quote is he hops on his hover bike and says, "These cameos are killing me," and flies off.
That sounds charming.
Yeah. We didn't hear from them for lots of years until this year's reboot, the story of which is super meta because the reboot game opens on a narrative of the 3 Battletoads saving the day, and everyone worships them, everyone loves them. And then at the end of the first level, it's revealed they're inside a virtual reality bunker where the villains of this game locked them for 26 years, the precise number of years they've been absent from the zeitgeist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the narrative is them reclaiming their spot as famous video game heroes as they are through this literal game.
So how did this show come about? Why is the tone so jarringly different to the established Battletoads universe at that point?
To be perfectly honest, I think it was just to attract the audience that they thought would. Because Ninja Turtles, in kind of a similar sense, was much lighter than, say, its comic book roots. I never recovered a ton of behind-the-scenes stuff about this one. I think they were just trying to replicate the success of past wacky animal cartoons.
Sure.
I think it ultimately came down to it was a Nintendo property. There was a comic in Nintendo Power, so they really wanted to drive for the kids as opposed to like the edgier stuff in, say, the arcades.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense. If someone's got like a mutant toad property just sitting there on the shelf that they can use, and everyone loves Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, someone's got to have looked at this and gone, "Hey, we've got a bunch of toads here. We could put them in suits," and just rolled this out in the hopes that it would take off.
It did need its own defining like aesthetic and sound, and for some reason they went with like Beach Boys 50s doo wop, which is like I think the thing that baffles both of us most.
So I was going to ask you this. I take it the Beach Boys thing, there's never been a Battletoads staple outside of this cartoon.
I don't think so. Like the iconic music people would associate is like just kind of feel da 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 da. That yeah, I don't think so. I think the only thing they like went with is the fact that Professor T Bird is a direct reference to Greece, and that was a character
Oh,
in at least a Battletoads game or two before the show.
I
So I
see.
wonder if they just took that as an inkling to just like completely blow out of proportion.
Ah, okay. Yeah, maybe. Professor T-Bird, the worst character in this, the most evil
Oh.
man.
He is widely infamous among the player base because I think in he's kind of one of those characters you love to hate in video games because if you but like he you get a message from him between deaths, I think in Battletoads Double Dragon, and he is the snarkiest asshole. He's like, "Whoa, you suck. Let me revive you real quick."
There's a bit in this where Professor T-Bird mutates these teenagers into the Battletoads with this ancient mutagen DNA. And I've put in my notes of this episode, I've just written down an exchange where one of the toads goes, "This wasn't part of the deal," and Professor T-Bird goes, "Of course it was." It's like, no, you didn't explain what was going to happen. You just
You
hurled DNA at them and mutated them into monsters.
It sounds cosmically cosmic.
We'll do it, feathered friend.
Excellent. Oh, that's Dave, you're a toad.
Yeah, well, you don't look so good yourself, buddy.
Hey, this wasn't part of the deal.
Of course it was. You're the Battletoads.
But they can change
Professor
back.
T.
Very unusual for the time that the heroes could change back. That's usually a plot point
Yeah.
that they work towards.
Watching this back to back with Street Sharps, where they're like, I guess we're stuck this way. It just seemed very easy. Like, you can be your old selves. It's fine. It's good.
Yeah.
I think it helps that they didn't want to be their old selves, really. Like, they're losers anyway, so there's not much incentive to go back anyway.
There was a line of dialogue that made me laugh, actually, where one of them goes, "Now when people call us toads, it'll be accurate," or something like that. And, I didn't think this was good, but to its credit, there were moments that made me laugh because of the sheer ridiculousness of it, or just the way that a line was delivered.
I feel like this could be workshopped into something okay. Yeah.
I felt like too much happened. It was,
Oh, completely.
they fit like, this was like a 10-episode arc condensed into 20 minutes.
Especially because they fight the bad guys thrice and then
Yes.
resolve all of their conflicts by the end of the episode.
Yeah. And there's even like,
Is it
"I'll come
the
back and
fake-
destroy your whole planet." And I'm like, well, this is like season finale, final episode type stuff with this massive spaceship overhead.
It's like they knew they wouldn't get past the first episode. They're just like, we want to tell this story of the Toads.
Yeah. You could have fit all this into a movie. Like maybe a
Yeah.
Battletoads movie would have worked better than doing a series about it.
I was gonna. What did you think of the backstory of our three heroes who don't even seem to do anything wrong, and yet everybody hates them, including the authority of their school?
um, it's very, I guess it's like unlikable nerd type thing. They all have horrible names.
It was Morgan Ziegler, Dave Shar, and George Pye, which I was trying to wrap and because Dave Shar is an anagram of Rash, which he becomes. So that one kind of makes sense. But the rest, they just wanted to make sure you hated these guys.
Remind me of their names again. I know is it Rash, Zit, and
Pimple.
Pimple. There we go.
Yes.
What likable character names.
I would have gone, I'm surprised they didn't do Wart for one. I feel like that would have made more sense.
I was just thinking like Veruca or something like that.
Cold sore.
Boil, yeah.
What's a shingles?
Shingles. Bone spurs.
Oh God.
My favorite character throughout the entire episode was the principal, who is just inexplicably confronted with all these really bizarre situations. And one of my notes from this episode simply says, "The principal's giant sandwich." And that's all I've written.
Hey, watch it, man!
What's going on here? I told you not to see each other anymore. You violated my order. You three are suspended.
The running gag of this character is every episode he wants to make a giant sandwich and it always falls apart. I don't know why he tries anymore.
What a quirk.
I like the beginning. I like the beginning when he's just like, "You three are the biggest losers at this school." It's like, so did they do something bad? Or are they just annoying? Like,
he just doesn't like them. That was the impression I got.
You three are the biggest losers in the history of Waldo P. Oxnard Junior High. And why? Because you're a bad influence on each other. So I'm splitting you three up.
But, sir, you can't do that.
We're our only friends in the entire universe. From now on, you don't sit together. You don't hang out together. You don't get within 20 yards of each other. Understood?
It's because there are three different countercultures intermixing. And he's like, no, nerds with nerds, jocks with jocks, weird art kids with weird art kids. That's how it works. This is high school.
Not in my damn school.
What did you think of the Dark Queen?
The first thing I noticed about the Dark Queen was that her voice sounded very familiar, and I looked it up afterwards, and it was Kathleen Barr, who voices Eva Lynn in the He-Man remake.
Oh, wow, that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Lots of He-Man actors in this, actually. I also like Scott McNeil plays the Bowser-looking henchman, and Alvin Sanders, who was Flog in the New Adventures of He-Man. He plays the science teacher who gives them somewhere to stay in a Hawaiian shirt.
That is kind of nice. They had that one teacher they could trust. I kind of forgot about him because they don't really revisit him. But
he shows up in that one scene and then he just disappears, doesn't he? It's like, well, that's this guy. And it's just this guy in a Hawaiian shirt who's like, oh, sure, you can stay at my place.
While you're, toads. We can't tell our parents we're toads.
But they can change back.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? The Dark Queen always took she always felt kind of weird to me because it's like we have all these primarily anthro-animal characters, and then someone got kind of horny on main and wanted to draw a hot chick to be their main villain.
Yes, I noticed she was very sexualized in the video game, much more so than this cartoon.
Any last-minute thoughts on Battletoads? I think discussing the length of the episode itself is giving it a lot more credit than it deserves.
It was, largely inoffensive. It was okay.
Yeah.
I think if the animation had been a bit better and less bland, it probably would have been more enjoyable.
The colors are super dull. I do think that's its biggest sin is that it just doesn't look very good.
Yeah, and just the backgrounds, like when they're outside, is just one big immovable color. And
completely.
Everything looks dead. One thing that that really took me by surprise, which is the final thing from my notes, was the Dark Queen's spaceship when it returns. I thought she was just going to open fire, in a traditional way and start blasting lasers, but suddenly it turns on its side, turns into a giant saw, and just goes through someone's house. And I was like, oh, didn't expect that.
Just split someone in half under the dome style.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I pretty much echo you that I would probably be a lot harder on this if I wasn't in the middle of kind of an enthusiastic Battletoads kick inspired by the remake. But ultimately, you can see why this just didn't get picked up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they blew their load, so to speak, with the story as well. Like, what else can you do with this? They got it all out of the way in that 20 minutes, and I think that's fine. It didn't offend me. It didn't annoy me. Like, it wasn't amazing, but I kind of sat there and went, oh, so that was Battletoads. And then I moved on with my life. I have still not moved on from the third thing we're going to discuss. So let's...
I feel like I almost kind of want to design a thumbnail where it's like, I don't know, Rash in one side of the screen, maybe the Invisible Man from Monster in My Pocket on the right, and then in the middle, like a silhouette of the third character, because you're building them up so much and it's not going to be disappointing.
Just a picture of like the jaws of infinity, I think, would get across the message. Can you Google pictures of despair? Let's see what comes up.
Martin's like, I wanted to watch my G.I. Joe show that didn't get picked up, but Tommy had to come into the PM.
Yeah, we nearly watched Sergeant Savage and His Screaming Eagles, which is a charming G.I. Joe spin-off about a Captain America-esque war hero. But no! At the last minute...
I'm sure there's another set of pilots we can do. I might have to search a little because I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's more.
I will long since have been driven to suicide by the third cartoon long before we can record another episode. So,
are you gonna beg Pimple to punch you in the brain like Rash?
I think
You'll
will.
have a tearful.
I want the principal to suffocate me with that enormous sandwich. That's how I will go. It will be a mercy.
And speaking of dead people and ghosts, presumably vampires, we also watched The Monster in My Pocket.
Yes. Which so I don't know if were you aware of Monster in My Pocket before I sent you this?
No, and I had the weirdest experience because the abbreviation of Pokemon is Pocket Monsters, and I was expecting like a weird American Pokemon prototype.
Oh, right. I guess it kind of is in its own way. I don't know if this was a British thing or an American thing, but in the 90s, there was the toy line called Monster in My Pocket. And the whole gist of it was they were monsters in various different colors, which look quite akin to the muscle figures we were discussing on our previous episode. They were made of like a rubbery sort of plastic, as were those. So, very similar. And they all just came in one color. So you get like green or purple or yellow or whatever. People know what colors are. I'm over explaining this.
No, you did.
But they were great. They were really well designed, and they were into their horror. They didn't tone anything down. They were very monstrous and sort of freaky and scary looking, like something right out of horror movies. I used to have quite a few. And they came with like little cards that had the abilities of your character on them as well.
Oh, that's cool. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, and they came with like this really awesome artwork on the cards. So yeah, I really like them. I've still got quite a few as well, and I think I've got some of the ones that are featured in this cartoon. So the toy line was enormous. Yeah, I think I've got Vampire, Medusa, Invisible Man.
That's a cool design.
Yeah, they're all.
I thought this pilot was neat, like straight up. I pretty much enjoyed it.
It's okay, isn't it? It's fairly. I think maybe that's to do with the fact that it was done by Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, that's good. They do good stuff.
Yeah, they do like wholesome products, don't they? They put some effort into it, and
Yeah.
it's not meant to be cynical or a cash in. It's them actually putting some effort into doing an entertaining cartoon.
And maybe that's because, like, if it's a pilot based on a toy line that didn't even get picked up, I think I was expecting something, and that's why I was so impressed. So this probably isn't actually that good, but I thought there was like decent character building. I like the bits of like vampire trying to hypnotize a junkyard dog. I like how the Invisible Man is like he's not just like an immediately trusting surrogate figure. He's kind of pompous, and he and the little girl kind of clash, and I like that dynamic too.
Yeah, it's very sort of charming. It's quite tonally different. Again, like with Battletoads, the source material I feel was much more geared towards horror, and this is a lot more wholesome.
Interesting. So there
like the
was
little
there
girl
like
and the monsters are kind of cutesy, and like
mhm.
I don't think the implication behind the Monster in My Pocket toy line is that these are monsters that have been shrunk. That's purely a marketing thing. Then I
Right.
guess the toy line had to, if you're stuck, I guess the cartoon had to, if you're stuck with the name Monster in My Pocket, what do you do with that? You've got to, you need to make a
Exactly.
monster that fits in a pocket because that's the name of the show. You can't really
Otherwise,
do anything else with it.
it sounds a little obscene out of context. Like in my pocket. Okay.
There's a monster
What do
in
you
my
watch?
pocket. You don't have to tell me, sir.
Um. Well, I guess the only design that doesn't really land for me is that the werewolf is also Rastafarian or something.
In his big Hawaiian shirt. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
that's a little
strange.
weird.
Calm yourself, Big Ed. First, we must think logically. Second, Wolfman gets a good whiff of this.
Ooh, it smells like the landfill on a hot day. So,
That Wolfman nose of yours should be able to track Swampy's scent right back to the vampire's lair.
But besides that, I think everyone else looks cool. I agree that the designs are. I love the mud monster or whatever he's called.
Oh, he's animated really well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's cool. I got Grease Pit vibes from him.
Yes, I was literally just about to say the same thing. They animate him pretty well. It's strange to me that there's only a couple of characters because there must be at least 200 monsters. I know this is only the first episode, but it does seem like
it did seem a little parsley, like, oh, we only get like the 3, but I guess they probably were like saving a few for after the pilot.
sure, yeah.
Would have, they do have the keen essential 90s villains dynamic where it's the leader, the secondary who's sometimes a woman and is a little smarter but can't afford to give a crap, and the big strong dummy.
Yes. Very
That's
much
all
the
you
archetypes of that show. I did read as well. I don't know if this is true, but apparently they made more than this one episode, but the others have just never been released.
Yeah, I think I noticed that too. I want to see those. I want to see if we ever got like, I don't know, what weird archetype could be. And this week, the monsters in my pocket meet Quasimodo, small.
Well, you laugh, but were you aware of this? Because there is actually like a hunchback monster in my pocket figure.
Now you too can reenact the story of a deformed French tragic figure who commits suicide at the end of his story.
Yeah,
I kind of figured with 200 figures something weird like that would happen, but I didn't know I'd be so on the money.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they did pretty much everything you can imagine. Any old monster, like from mythology, they'd found a way to incorporate it, and the designs are great.
Those are cool. I'm definitely going to look into those. I like to think if like the franchise persisted into today, there'd be like a crumpled little Japanese girl in a TV. That'd be neat.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe they would base them on. I mean, it had a resurgence in I think like 2006. Monster in My Pocket came back with a new toy line, and they did like all the same characters, but but just like redesigned versions of them with like more detail and stuff.
That's cool. I'll look into those. This one, I was pleasantly surprised by this one.
Yeah, it's okay, isn't it? It's as we say, it's like inoffensive. I don't think anyone would take exception to this.
Yeah.
It just kind of does its own thing, and it's fairly charming and innocuous. The characters
As
are all
opposed
okay.
to our next one.
Which the least innocuous thing I've ever seen. The next cartoon.
If there's nothing else you want to say about monsters, I'm ready if you are.
I don't think there's anything more I can say about this one. Just that it was fine. I could easily see this being something of today. I kind of like the twist that it's screams make the bad monsters grow and laughter make the good monsters grow. I thought that's kind of interesting.
Great. That's like some anime nonsense, and I'm all for it.
I like the bit where they go around, they try and find the movie star from the movie who's screaming, and they come round to our house, and she's aged about 40 years, and she can't do the scream anymore. And she's like,
I love the archetype of like the aged performer who's just very, like Lady Crane from Game of Thrones, kind of, is the first thing that pops in my head. She was awesome. I would have loved to see more of her dynamic with different characters, too.
What if I told you I was a vampire?
Well, no offense, darling, but I've worked with the best, and you just don't have it. Well, for one thing, you're too short.
I mean, a real vampire.
But there was also, I believe there was an NES game of Monster in My Pocket as well, which was much more heavily based on the toy line.
Interesting. Okay.
But
I wonder how that would go.
Again, like it had like a miniature vampire and a miniature Frankenstein who were watching a TV at the start, and the game is like you're in a fridge or you're in the bathroom or something like that. So they did that miniaturized thing again. So yeah, maybe it's just it's not an easy one to adapt.
Yeah.
I think just keep it as toys and like trading cards. You don't need to build up a whole universe around it. We'll move on to the third thing that we watched.
The chimes are calling, Martin. Start us off.
Welcome to hell. What do I say? How best to introduce? If I haven't hyped it up enough already.
I think the writers of this show's theme song had the same discussion. How best to introduce? And they decided on a theme song that just repeated the character's name.
Let me pose you this question. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Let me tell you what could go wrong. A fucking lot could go wrong. I have never. Well, we watched the animated pilot for Busby, which I think I'm going to be sick. I was aware of before I watched this. I was not aware there was an animated pilot, but I was aware of Busby the game, and I bore him no ill will. I was aware that he was a thing, it was a game, and it had come out sometime in the past, and I lumped him into the same category as like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and Sonic.
That's an insult.
And I now realize that I can be sued for libel because he is nowhere near the category of those beloved mascots. He is the worst thing I have ever seen.
Because I want to fly! What could possibly go wrong? I like it!
I have half a mind to correct you on the pronunciation of the character's name, that it's Bubsy, but I also get the notion that you're mispronouncing his name on purpose so he like doesn't find you.
What did I
like
call
if
him?
you say you call him Busby,
Oh, I meant to say Buzz. I think I just keep going to say Bubsy.
Okay, because if you say his name 3 times, he'll find you, and you don't want that. So
You know what? I must have just blacked it out.
they only say it 10 times in the intro. The theme song is Bubsy, Bubsy.
I'm having flashbacks. And
I think.
I assume you know probably more about Busby than I do, because you recommended this abomination, but you didn't recommend it. You sent it to me.
Don't say recommended as if I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yes, that is doing
I'm
you a
recommending you.
You made me aware of its existence.
Yes, I had to see it, and so did you. I do know a bit about Bubsy. It's a dumb video game. It's bad. They recently revived it as well. Actually, the revival was bad.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Bubsy is a bobcat. He's Bubsy Bobcat. There was falling damage in his 2D platformer. That's what everyone remembers. In that, if you're playing Mario or Sonic and you just like miss a jump, but you land on a platform still, you're fine. Bubsy's bones will shatter upon impact, and you'll lose a life.
I'd love to see his bones shatter upon impact.
You are not the only one who holds this ill will against Bubsy. Allegedly.
Yeah, I read about this. I saw someone had done a video on Busby Trivia, and I heard that all the game developers really despised the character.
That they hung plushies of Bubsy from the ceiling rafters and decapitated him.
I mean, I do feel sorry for the guy who created Bubsy, because I feel like it was an innocent enough idea that this guy was like, I can make a video game about a cat that flies. And, fine, because I've seen images of Bubsy before, and, I was fine with it. I didn't think it was a horrendous looking character. But somewhere along the way, this cursed franchise.
I think the characterization that really does in Bubsy's likability is that there's characters about as annoying as Bubsy, but what sets Bubsy apart is that he has the distinction of being monstrously self-centered. Like, his opening is his theme song being Bubsy, Bubsy, and he's like dancing by himself, going through his day. No other characters are in this intro, which is like the perfect encapsulation of Bubsy's inner himself.
So after the failure of the game, what possessed them to make this cartoon? Did someone just sell the rights?
I think it's something to that effect. This is another one where I just don't know a bunch of. I think someone thought it would be a big hit, and because they also made Bubsy 3D, which is one of the most widely reviled video games in existence. And it was in production around the same time Super Mario 64 was, which set the precedent for 3D platforming. So if you looked at Bubsy 3D before you had Crash Bandicoot or Spyro or Mario to compare that to, you'd be like, maybe this will sell well. So let's make a TV show that goes along with it. Then Bubsy 3D came out alongside Mario 64, and everyone saw him for the fraud that he was, and it sold nothing and was widely detested. So I think that's a big part of what did in the pilot, aside from it being terrible.
Right. Are any of the characters from this animated pilot in the game? Because there is a huge amount of characters.
And
all of them are on screen all the time. There is no place.
I think the bird chef absolutely is. The rest, the jury's kind of out on. I'm not positive.
Right. It seems
I feel like
I was going for kind of a Rocko's Modern Life, Real Monsters type, surrealness.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of that, and maybe a little bit of Warner Animaniacs kind of thing.
Yeah.
They did kind of go for an aesthetic in that Bubsy's a bobcat, so I guess they put him in the desert. And I don't even know if bobcats live in deserts. I tend to associate them more with mountainous areas, just beside the point. So they gave him that, like, sorry?
I read something about the desert environment, and I don't know if you read this as well, that the pilot was produced in cooperation with Taco Bell.
That explains so much.
That was why they had like a Mexican desert type theme to everything.
See, I was going to describe it as Bubsy looks like he lives in an Outback steakhouse, but that that paints such a pretty picture. He has a cactus by his bed. Okay, that clears up. That makes sense. That tracks.
Though why
Bubsy
they would
lives...
want to do this, I have no idea.
Go to Taco Bell. What could possibly go wrong?
The amount of times he says, "What could possibly go wrong?" By the end, I developed like a nervous twitch.
Like a Pavlovian response to the phrase. He just has this tendency to make people anxious, like the armadillo he lives with, who has sleep out nightmares about being crushed by semi-trucks and living with Bubsy.
Yes. The armadillo gets the highlight of the episode for me, where at one point he just shouts, "You should all be in jail!" I'm like, yes, I agree. You poor man.
What can possibly go wrong?
That's what.
My helmet has been stolen! The entire world can be destroyed in the blink of an eye! Literally! Virgil, always looking at the downside! Come on, Arnold, let's be heroes and save the day! Oh, let's...
That armadillo asked for none of this.
I did put on my notes, I've just put great cast, because you've got Pat Fraley and Rob Paulson are both in this, and I recognize Pat Fraley doing, there's like a character who's kind of like a scientist.
Dr. Virgil Reality.
Oh! Yes, that's the character. I'm choking on my own rage here.
I don't think he was in the games.
Right. I mean, he sounded like, I just noticed that he sounded like Krang, and I thought, oh, that's Pat Fraley. And you know, all these people give good performances, but they're just screaming and shouting and always in motion and flailing around towards you. And there's like 6 of them on the screen, and they're all talking over each other, and it's just like, and I was like, oh god, I'm gonna have a stroke.
Hey, Uncle Bubsy! I'm totally nuts! Yo, Arnold, guess what? Arnold!
No, not that blindfold!
Oh god, I've never heard you so defeated. We could have just done Screaming Eagles.
It really felt like I was watching this for about 6 hours.
Right, it does. And it feels so strange because it's like Bubsy being, it's his niece and nephew's birthday. So that leads them somehow going to a virtual reality thing, and then there's a villain, and he realizes at the end, oh, I was selfish on the twins' birthdays, or back to that. So it feels like 3 episodes of arcs have passed.
There is a lot. Why do people need this machine? Because this revolutionary piece of technology that this scientist has created and inexplicably given to the history's greatest monster.
And like in the remotely wrong hands, someone could just end the world with a machine that just creates what your mind desires.
I mean, the one laugh I did get out of this was when the callback to the trucks and the armadillo having the nightmares.
Oh yeah.
He uses the machine, and someone like knocks on the door and someone gets up and a truck just plows through the house. And I was, for one brief moment, I hoped they'd all just been killed by the truck.
Not the truck again.
Oh! 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 Where is it? I'll get it! I'll get it! Oh, definitely.
The villain has kind of a neat design. Like, if you're gonna make a Bubsy villainist, I think that's about what it would look like.
Oh, the cat lady?
Yeah. Her name is... It baffled me. I was like, what's this character's name? And I looked it up on the wiki, and she's simply listed as Allie.
That memorable villain.
Which I guess it's supposed to be like, oh, Alley Cat. But I would have called her, like, I don't know, Claudia with a W.
Oh, that would have been good.
Yeah, sign me up. Let's remake this pilot. Let's do it.
No!
The one change.
No, Busby should be thrown into a landfill somewhere, along with its creator, and then buried under 10 tons of concrete. This has been episode 5 of...
Yeah, that about covers it. I mean, Bubsy is effectively back in the zeitgeist as of his remake that no one liked, but no one liked him in the first place, so I don't think that's going to stop him from coming back.
Stop trying to make Busby happen. I've called him Busby again. I don't care. Stop trying to make Bubsy happen. It's not going to happen.
There is only one video game property that disappeared for 2.5 decades and starts with a B that came back and was worth it after their bad pilot. It was Battletoads, not Bubsy. And that's our takeaway today. Yes. Toads, not Bobcats.
Toads, not Yeah. No offense to the Bobcat community, who I have the utmost respect for.
Bobcats are neat animals. I'm kind of sad that Bubsy is their representation.
Would you like to hear what my final thought on my notes were from Bubsy?
Yes, please.
I've simply written, it's very dense.
It is. It's like if it had a taste, it'd be like a Slurpee that I felt like, it's like the cartoon equivalent of the pure slurp squishy from The Simpsons. Just makes you go nuts.
I disagree. I think if Bubsy had a taste, it would be the tears of the damned.
And you said to yourself, walking in, what could possibly go wrong?